It is 12 noon in Damascus. It's 3 a.m. in Los Angeles. I'm Monita Rajpal. This is World One, live from London. Syria's splintered opposition is a step closer to presenting a united front to the world, but the world is waiting to see if Syria's government will commit to the UN's plan for peace. Violence, hundreds of delegates from Syria's opposition groups have gathered in Istanbul to try to heal the divisions plaguing their movement. The majority of delegates decided to rally under the banner of the Syrian National Council, but despite some reconciliation, there are still major divisions. Delegates from the Kurdish National Council walked out in protest, and another group, the Syrian-based National Coordinating Committee, didn't attend. CNN's Ben Wiedemann is following developments from the Lebanese capital, Beirut. He joins us now. So many holes in this peace plan, one major hole being that the opposition group isn't united. So who will Bashar al-Assad's government be negotiating with?
Well, that's a very good question, and I'm sure Bashar al-Assad, sitting in his palace in Damascus, is quite happy to see these divisions within the Syrian opposition.
Ben Wiedemann there in Beirut. We want to see what newspapers around the world are saying about this. Out of the United Arab Emirates, the national newspaper has this headline: Assad's only interest is in crushing dissent. It's an opinion piece that says the authorities' main goal isn't to find a solution to the crisis, but rather to forcibly crush it. Whether the Assad regime responds to Mr. Annan's plan or not is inconsequential for the Syrian revolution. The best and the only way to preserve Syria and guard it against the impending civil war is to force the Damascus dictator out as soon as possible. Moving on to the China Daily in Hong Kong, its headline is Annan and Syria need time. It's a comment piece that goes on to say China, along with Russia, has believed from the very start that condemning the Syrian government or simply forcing Assad to step down does not conform to the spirit of the UN Charter. The Western powers have finally come to terms with that reality, that their aggressive approach toward the Syrian crisis will never win broad international support. And finally, from here in the UK, The Guardian has this headline: a devious diplomacy. It's an opinion piece that says nothing is clear, including what the Syrian government has really decided to do. If the plan falls, that would not be a surprise. If it, or something like it, succeeds, it will only extend the conflict in a new form, but one which might reduce its human costs. Syria is topping the agenda of the Arab League summit taking place in Baghdad, though no country representatives have been invited. It is the first summit to be held in Iraq in more than 20 years. But while politicians discuss what to do about the conflict raging next door, some Iraqis have already taken matters into their own hands. CNN's Arwa Damon is in the Iraqi capital, Baghdad. She joins us now live with that. Arwa.
Hi, Monita, and the foreign ministers or representatives of various countries are currently meeting.
Arwa Damon there in Baghdad. You are watching World One live from London. A few minutes with the Pope. Cuba's former leader Fidel Castro has requested a meeting with Pope Benedict XVI on his final day in Havana. His brother and current leader Raul Castro met with the pontiff on Tuesday. The head of the Catholic Church has used his tour of Latin America to denounce violence. An official has responded to the Pope's comments on the country's political structure, saying the system is sustainable and doesn't need to change. We want to cross now to Patrick Oppman in Havana, and he joins us live with how his trip is going so far. Patrick?
Hi, good morning, Monita. And it seems that a long-awaited, long-suspected...
And there in Havana, thank you. You're watching World One live from London. More than 200 workers have been evacuated off the coast of Scotland following a major underwater gas leak. Now the wind's direction will decide how big a problem it becomes. Meteorologist Mari Ramos is at the World Weather Center with more details on that. Mari.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things that are at stake here, and the weather's just one of them. Northwestern Europe, but also as we head to areas to the south. Back to you.
Okay. Mari, thank you.
Sure.
U.S. authorities are investigating an incident during a JetBlue flight from New York to Las Vegas. The flight's captain became hysterical and had to be locked out of the cockpit and then restrained.
Stay in now!
Now, imagine what it must be like to be a slave and suddenly free. CNN's John Suter and Edith McNamee visited a school for women who were slaves in Mauritania. What you're about to see is part 3 of CNN's Freedom Project report on a nation where up to 1/5 of the population lives in slavery.
It was this bright spot, I think, like in our journey in a lot of.
You're watching World One live from London. The ability to smile again after hiding his face for 15 years. The international community is growing increasingly concerned about the threat of a new war between Sudan and South Sudan. The UN has called for calm as violence continues near the oil fields along the border between the two countries. Both sides have accused each other of starting the fighting. South Sudan says Sudan has bombed important oil fields, but Sudan denies this. CNN's Nema El-Bagir has been following the story. She joins us now here in the studio. What more could the international community do at this point?
Well, for a start, they have now finally acknowledged that this situation is...
And the big concern is this obvious, in addition to the other big concerns, is that there's this April 3rd summit that was supposed to happen but has since been cancelled.
Well, the April 3rd summit was finally going to draw a line under all of the outstanding issues.
Air raids continue.
Yeah.
All right. Nema, thank you very much. Well, in the U.S., the Miami Herald newspaper reports that police investigating the death of Florida teen Trayvon Martin had initially wanted to charge the man who shot him. 17-year-old Martin was unarmed when he was shot dead by Neighborhood Watch volunteer George Zimmerman. The case has sparked national debate about Florida's Stand Your Ground law. It is the defense we've been hearing throughout this case. CNN's legal contributor Paul Callan joins us now live from New York to explain. Well, Paul, thank you very much for being with us. I think it's one of this law in Florida is really interesting for the rest of us around the world because it's one that pretty much says you as an individual in Florida have the right to shoot down someone if there is reasonable sense or reasonable fear of death or serious injury. I guess it comes to the point, what does reasonable mean?
Well, you know, the law, which has been described as the Stand Your Ground law, it almost sounds like it comes out of an old Western movie.
CNN's legal contributor, Paul Callan, in New York. Thank you so much.
Nice being with you, Monita.
Thank you. A cornerstone of U.S. President Barack Obama's sweeping health care reform law may be in jeopardy. U.S. Supreme Court justices are expressing sharply different views on a key requirement. Despite the hundreds of billions of dollars spent every year, the quality of health care in the U.S. remains a hot-button issue. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development says the U.S. spends more than any other country on health care. That's $2.6 trillion a year. But an OECD report ranks the U.S. 31st out of 34 countries for health coverage, and that's near the bottom and just behind Slovakia. A 37-year-old man in the U.S. has received what doctors call the most extensive face transplant ever. Richard Lee Norris lost his lips, nose, portions of his mouth, and the front portion of his tongue to a gunshot injury. It is the start of the Major League Baseball season, but the headlines have been stolen by an historic deal away from the field of play, which brings together two of the biggest names in American sport. Alex Thomas is here to share some of his magic.
Thank you, Monita.
You like that?
I do like that. It's not even 7 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast of the United States, but the new Major League Baseball season, much for one man, even with his superhuman tennis abilities, Monita.
Keep him busy and out of trouble.
It will do.
All right, Alex, thank you very much. You're watching World One live from London. Welcome back. You are watching World One. Here are some of the other stories that we're talking about on the show. It is the largest ever jackpot in U.S. history, and if you're feeling lucky, now is the time to buy a ticket. The Mega Millions Friday draw is worth a record $476 million. No lottery player has matched all 5 numbers, plus the Mega Ball on one ticket since the end of January. The winner could become richer than singer Elton John or pop impresario Simon Cowell. I don't know he was been called that. But talking about the rich and the famous, Tim Tebow has become the most marketable man on the planet. That's according to the Davy Brown Index. The new Jets quarterback trails behind Oprah Winfrey, Adele, and the Duchess of Cambridge as the best personality to sell your product. The index measures celebrities in 8 categories, including trust, sincerity, influence, and appeal. I'm sure our Max Foster will get in on that list as well. And check out this little guy. This video has plenty of appeal. Meet Beyonce. She may be only a Dachshund puppy, but she's a survivor. Beyonce was born without a heartbeat and was so small at birth that she could fit in a spoon. I think my voice is getting higher pitched because she's so cute. She's now roughly the size of an iPhone and weighs about 100 grams. Her owners hope Beyonce will set the Guinness record for the world's tiniest dog. You just want to smush it. It's so cute. Speaking of so cute, Prince Harry has been called the spare to Prince William's heir. He's been called a playboy and even at one time the wild child.
About the future
of the red-headed royal. Hello.
Moved out of home at the age of 27. Finally growing up.
That's when I moved out of the house.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you have parallels already.
We have things in common.
Yeah, so we got some access to a senior palace source for the documentary coming up on Friday and into the weekend, and here are a few of the highlights out of that.
He is the soldier prince, the dashing army officer with a twinkle in his eye and a...
Well, at least you know you'd be safe. You had him as a roommate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is this view, I mean, perhaps a controversial view, that if he ends up...
moving in with the sister-in-law and the brother.
Well, not moving in. The palace, you've seen it.
A bit
it's more
big.
like a small town.
Yeah, right.
So it's a small apartment within the same building, but they want to be close together.
I've heard it's been described as a royal bedsit.
Yeah, it used to be staff quarters where he's moving in, but he's just desperate to get in the palace. He gets the cottage later.
Not bad at all. All right, Max, thank you very much for that. You are watching World One, live from London. That's Max Foster. I'm Monita Rajpal. Thanks for joining us. We'll update you the top stories in just a moment. Stay with us here on CNN.